Sabbath shalom, everybody. We greet you and we bless you in the name of Ahayah Ashịrị Ahayah, and his son Yache, Christ, and our mother, Rụwaka, Kwadoshi. We thank you for joining us today. We are Hebrew Readers Church. We definitely thank you. We have plenty of things we're going to go into today. We do have a very, very good lesson for you all. The truth of the gospel is in your walk. So everybody just stick with us. We ask for you just to be patient and bear with us today, and we just hope that we are able to edify everyone in the truth of the gospel and continue to strengthen everyone in their walk. This is the time of strengthening, this is the time of truly self-examination, truly walk upright and to walk as Christ did here on this earth. So we definitely thank you, and we bless all of the people of the family and of the church. And may Ahayah continue to bless you all and keep you all in these times. Kasafo, my brother.
All right. Our walk, that is our actions, behavior, lifestyle, is a testament of the gospel. Not just how much knowledge we have or how well we speak or how many people we talk to about the Bible. Our goal is charity. Can we read 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 1 through 8, please?
Though I speak with the tongue of men and of angels, and have not charity, I am become as sounding brass or a tinkling cymbal.
So, if we know that Bantu is truly the Hebrew language, or even if we speak pure ancient Hebrew, we have not charity. This is no profit unto us, and we have evidence of it by our forefathers speaking ancient Hebrew in the wilderness for 40 years, and the unbelievers still passed away.
And though I have the gift of prophecy, and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and though I have all faith, so that I could remove mountains, and have not charity, I am nothing. And though I bestow all my goods to feed the poor, and though I have my body to be burned, have not charity, it profiteth me nothing. Charity suffereth long, and is kind. Charity envieth not. Charity vaunteth not itself, is not puffed up, doeth not behave itself unseemly, seeketh not her own, and is not easily provoked, thinketh no evil, rejoiceth not in iniquity, but rejoiceth in the truth, beareth all things, believeth all things, hopeth all things, endureth all things. Charity never faileth, but whether there be prophecies, they shall fail. Whether there be tongues, they shall cease. Whether there be knowledge, it shall vanish away.
We see how important charity is, and we get scriptural understanding of the characteristics of her, so we can understand what we have to attain unto and what we have to walk in, so that we may truly abide in the gospel. Because Yache is the example by his walk, preaching for all of us, because he did the same thing. Let's read Testament of Dan, chapter 6, verse 8 to 10, please.
Keep therefore yourselves, my children, from every evil work. Cast away wrath and all lying, and love truth and long suffering. And the things which ye have heard from your father, do ye also impart to your children, that the Savior of the Gentiles may receive you. For he is true and long suffering, meek and lowly, teacheth by his works the law of Alahayim.
Yache taught the law by his works. Hence, you can see the example in the apostles teaching the law by their works. Continue, please.
Depart therefore from all unrighteousness, and cleave unto the righteousness of Alahayim, and your race will be saved forever.
That's the exhortation we have, brothers and sisters. In sincerity, we do all things to the edifying of others in meekness. 2 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 12, please.
For our rejoicing is this, the testimony of our conscience, that in simplicity, holy sincerity, not with fleshly wisdom, but by the grace of Alahayim. We have had our conversation in the world, and more abundantly, viewed.
This is the goal for us all, to make sure our conscience is clear, knowing that we walked in simplicity towards all, and not with fleshly wisdom. So it's not according to the world, nor according to the works of the flesh, but according to the grace of Alahayim, working in Yache, putting on a yoke of the bond of meekness and lowliness of heart, to have a conscience pure toward Alahayim. This means being mindful not to do anything that will cause another to sin, while you make sure you don't sin yourself. Romans chapter 14, verse 13, please.
Romans chapter 14, verse 13. Let us not therefore judge one another anymore, but judge this rather, that no man put a stumbling block or an occasion of fall in his brother's way.
Paul was never without law to Alahayim.
Right.
Did not transgress the commandments. So you can understand, he wasn't teaching to go contrary to the will of Alahayim, but he was operating with people where they were without transgressing the law of Alahayim. And you can confirm that he did not transgress in Acts 24 and 16.
And herein do I exercise myself, to have always a conscience void of offense toward Alahayim and toward men.
And there we see this is our example, because Paul said, be ye followers of me as I am of Christ, right? We have to be void of offense toward Alahayim and void of offense towards men. And when it comes to men, we have to be void of righteous offenses towards men. Because Yache, he was perfect and without guile, yet the Pharisees, they counted him as a sinner.
Right.
So we, in the world now, we have to be mindful to do all things in the sight of Alahayim in righteousness. We still have to guard ourselves and make sure we don't sin. Because Paul said, if we be found sinners, is Christ the minister of sin? Alahayim forbid. So we can't go into transgression for the sake of thinking we're preaching Christ to someone. We actually have to abide in the faith so that they may come unto him. Galatians chapter 6, verse 4. Verse 5, please.
But let every man prove his own work, and then shall he have rejoicing in himself alone, and not in another. For every man shall bear his own burden.
Self-examination is so key to keeping us going in the right direction. This is putting on his cross. We have to be mindful of the lust of the flesh and keep our bodies in subjection, lest we be cast away ourselves when we seek to preach unto another. 1 Corinthians 9 and 27, please.
But I keep under my body, and bring it into subjection, lest by any means, when I have preached to others, I myself should be a castaway.
So we see why we're talking about the truth of the gospel is in our walk. Because Paul himself, the beloved Paul, attested, I have to keep my own body in subjection. Because I can preach to as many people as I want to, but if I'm not in the faith, I'm going to be cast away myself. That's why the truth of preaching the gospel is in the demonstration, in our behavior, because that's what keeps us from being cast away. Because one can put on the show of acting like one is in the fruits, but Ahayah sees the heart. So the outward show get exposed in due time if one is not walking in sincerity. Therefore, we have to be mindful to do all things in the Spirit of Christ. 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 4 to 5, please.
And my speech and my preaching was not with enticing words of man's wisdom, but in demonstration of spirit and of power.
There we see it wasn't about trying to entice you with words and, this kind of knowledge and this information. You didn't know about this and that. It's actually in demonstrating the Spirit. That is how we actually gain people, because when we demonstrate the Spirit, it's actually Yache working in us. And Yache is gaining the people because we actually don't do anything with vessels, either unto righteousness to yield ourselves or yielding ourselves unto unrighteousness. And through yielding unto righteousness in Yache, we would also be demonstrating the power of Alahayim. That power is where our faith needs to stand. Can you read verse 5, please?
That your faith should not stand in the wisdom of men, but in the power of Alahayim.
And by precept, that power is in the fruits. That faith in the fruits causes us to stand, because it's Yache working in us. Can we read the scriptural understanding that the power is in the fruits? 1 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 20 to 21, and Colossians 11, please.
1 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 20. For the kingdom of Alahayim is not in word, but in power. What will ye? Shall I come unto you with a rod, or in love, or in the spirit of meekness?
It's amazing what Paul showed. Should I come on to you telling you a bunch of scriptures? Shall I come on to you, spitting out all the laws? Or shall I come on to you in love, in the spirit of meekness? Which one is going to gain a brother? Which one is going to save a soul? We can see through Paul's testimony, through what Yache did in him, the dichotomy, where he said, my word and my speech is not in the wisdom of men, but in the demonstration of the spirit and power of Alahayim. Continue to Colossians 1 and 11, please.
Strengthened with all might, according to his glorious power, unto all patience and long-suffering with joyfulness.
That we see where his glorious power leads us. The power of Alahayim leads us to all patience and long-suffering with joyfulness. We are to run towards the mark of Yache in this power, because this is what is leading us unto him. One of the holy virgins is also power. Power to change. Right? Can we read Philippians chapter 3, verse 13 to 17, please?
Brethren, I count not myself to have apprehended, but this one thing I do, forgetting those things which are behind, and reaching forth unto those things which are before. I press toward the mark for the prize of the high calling of Alahayim in Christ Yache.
That lets us know we have to let the past go. Every day we have to let the past go, because every day we're being chastened. Paul said, for Mashiach's sake, I die daily, because it's Yache being formed in us all. And he said, you reach forward to those things which are before him. So as we forget the past, we have to keep the goal in mind. The end goal of charity, because charity is the end of the commandment, according to 1 Timothy 1 and 5, and Yache is the end of the law for righteousness to everyone that believe it. Only through him we can attain to charity.
Let us therefore, as many as be perfect, be thus minded. And if anything ye be otherwise minded, Alahayim shall reveal even this unto you.
Notice that's the mindset of the perfect. They keep pressing forward. It helps you understand how David was counted perfect even though he had made a mistake. Press forward. Didn't look back. It helps understand how the 12 patriarchs, they're the 12 patriarchs, the forefathers, yet they made mistakes, but they pressed forward. They didn't look back. So one can understand how it's actually attainable.
Nevertheless, whereto we have already attained, let us walk by the same rule. Let us mind the same thing.
To walk in perfection, we have to come together under the same rule. Have to be on the same page in doctrine to attain unto the goal. And notice what he said next, because how are we going to know the true doctrine unless we have a preacher? How are we going to have a preacher unless a preacher be sent?
Brethren, be followers together of me, and mark them which walk as ye have us for an example.
You can see how the apostles were sent to give the people the guidance so that they could be under the same rule. It's letting us know there would be an example for the people, even as there was an example for the people back then in the days of the apostles. Yache is sending help for his church, as he said he would do. He said he would send Isaiah and Jeremiah to help. Can we read 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 3 to 5, please?
2 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 3. But though we walk in the flesh, we do not war after the flesh. The weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through Alahayim to the pulling down of strongholds, casting down imaginations, and every high thing that exalteth itself against the knowledge of Alahayim, and bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of Christ.
You see how it's all mental warfare. It's mental warfare, cleaving unto the voice of the angel of righteousness, and believing in his works, and having that faith to bring all thoughts into subjection, which will cause our walk in this gospel to be true and to be sincere in simplicity. Our words don't gain people as much as our walk actually does. Let's look at 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 1 and 2, please.
Likewise, ye wives, be in subjection to your own husbands, that if any obey not the word, they also may without the word be won by the conversation of the wives, while they behold your chaste conversation coupled with fear.
And that word conversation means behavior, manner of life. When you look at the Greek text, so it's not only literally what you say, but it's really talking about what you actually do, your conversation. We see how the wives and sisters are so important, and it's also the men as well. All right? Can you read 1 Corinthians chapter 16, verse 13 to 14, please?
Watch ye, stand fast in the faith, quit you like men, be strong. Let all your things be done with charity.
So we have the exhortations. Walk as we've seen the apostles walk, because they are followers of Christ. And notice they set an example. That was their preaching, setting an example of righteousness. And we are exhorted to watch ourselves, be circumspect, and stand in this faith, knowing that our brethren in the world are going through the same afflictions. This is our calling. We have to be on guard at all times to attain unto this salvation. Because our real wisdom and knowledge is in righteous behavior. Can we read James chapter 3, verse 13 to 18, please?
Who is a wise man and endued with knowledge among you? Let him show out of a good conversation his works with meekness of wisdom. But if ye have bitter envying and strife in your hearts, glory not, and lie not against the truth.
We would be lying against the truth to think that we are walking in wisdom if these spirits are still working against us. And continue, please.
This wisdom descendeth not from above, but is earthly, sensual, devilish.
And we see if there's those emulations, we know exactly where it's coming from. It's the works of the flesh. It's of the devil. Continue, please.
For where envying and strife is, there is confusion in every evil work. But the wisdom that is from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle and easy to be entreated, full of mercy, good fruits, without partiality, without hypocrisy.
This is why we have to focus ourselves first. Make sure we're walking in the faith. Make sure we understand the doctrine. Make sure we understand the law to purify ourselves. And then that will truly bring us to being able to be peaceable with men as we grow. And we'll grow in gentleness, understanding the compassion of Christ, and be easy to be entreated. And that comes with being full of mercy, knowing how the compassion, the grace and truth that Yache brought will help open our hearts to walk in the right direction. And being without hypocrisy is because we are doing it in sincerity. We're not as the Pharisees who tell us what to do but don't do it. But we're practicing and doing what we're also telling others to do. does this bring about in verse 18?
And the fruit of righteousness is sown in peace of them that make peace.
We see when the fruits of righteousness is truly working there, peace will come. It's a key indication because there's one spirit. If there's division, there's something hindering, there's something earthly there. There's something that's hindering the growth. And we're all called to be an example of a believer. 1 Timothy 4:12, please.
Let no man despise thy youth, but be thou an example of a believer in word, in conversation, charity, in spirit, in faith, purity.
We're all called unto this. And 1 Corinthians 16:14, Paul said, let all your things be done with charity. And we have the exhortation of how charity, how characteristics in 1 Corinthians 13. So we are to strive forward and be an example of a believer. That's the exhortation we have, brothers and sisters.
All right. Shabbat shalom, everybody.